The correct answer is Yoda's lightsaber. I mean, we can all day long, but to have a little Shoto lightsaber is so cute. That is the correct answer. I am very excited about that. My name is Jeff Weiss. I am the Worship and Creative Arts Director here at the Point Church. This has been an amazing 8 weeks. This job has been a dream come true, and there are so many people here I haven't met yet. Part of that is my crippling introvertedness. Part of that is just because I'm usually so busy on Sundays. So, hello, I'm Jeff. I like movies, I like rock and roll, I like Star Wars, and I like talking to people. So please introduce yourself. I would love to get to know you. I'd love to talk nerdy things with you as well. Want to kind of give you just a little bit of my background. I'm going to sum up 47 years into 2 minutes. So let's see what we can do. I was born in a small town in Missouri. I went to college at Southwest Baptist University down near the Ozarks. I originally went to be a minister. That's what I thought I was going to do. I was a double major in theater because I had been doing plays ever since 8th grade, and SBU offered me a theater scholarship. So I thought, hey, why not? I'll do plays for fun anyway. It'll help pay for college, and I'll take these fun classes. Toward the end of my freshman year, 19-year-old me thought that being a minister was not for me after all. So I dropped that as a major and just kind of spent the next couple of years not knowing what I should be doing. And then eventually it just hit me, well, just keep doing what you are doing because you like it and it's fun. And I ended up going to grad school down at the University of Alabama. There we go. I knew if Scott was here, I'd hear that. Went to the University of Alabama to get my graduate degree in theater. It's where I met Ashley. So Ashley is originally from Zion, and I'm from Missouri. We met in Alabama. Go figure. I went down to meet a Southern girl, and I met someone who was even from further north than I was. So go figure. After grad school, my career took me to Georgia for a couple of years, where I was a professor, then down to Florida for several years, which is where Ashley and I actually got married. It's where Elliot was born. It's where we lived. And for those who say, why did you move to Illinois from Florida? Tuesday and Wednesday showed you why we moved from Florida, because it's that way 8 months of the year down there. So that's why we enjoyed having seasons. The first year having Thanksgiving on the beach was fine, but then after that, you're like, yeah, we kind of miss seeing leaves change. So 2013, we moved here. We wanted to be closer to family, and I ended up taking a job at College of Lake County, which is where I worked for the last 10 and a half years. Around 2019, we decided it was time to start looking for a new church, decided to stop being a part of our church up in Kenosha, and wanted to look for a new place. So we'd kind of, going around. We saw the church float in the 2019 Labor Day parade, and Ashley said, hey, they have a band. Maybe you could start playing music again. And so I looked up information about the church. What actually brought us here is I saw that the church had a food pantry, and that at the time, in 2019, it was being used as an overnight shelter. And I thought, if a church that actually puts their faith on their feet, that's what we want to be a part of. So we came here, we think November of 2019 for the first time. We were here 5 or 6 weeks over the next couple of months. Then COVID, and like a lot of people, we didn't go anywhere for a year and a half. We came back finally around Christmas time of 2021, and we haven't left. So in March of 2022, I started playing in the band. Elliot started being part of the youth group. Ashley helps out in the AIM department. Our daughter Addison runs around being adorable. That's her job. And you haven't gotten rid of us yet. And then, things started happening, and then it kind of worked out that here I am. And so it's been a wonderful 8 weeks. So thank you to those who've been encouraging so far. God is good, and hopefully we will continue to say that today. So this staff series was chosen in between the time when I knew I was going to come on staff, but I hadn't actually come on staff yet. So there was kind of, okay, which aspect of the armor of God do you want to talk about? And so I asked for the shield of faith because I thought there were some very specific things I wanted to talk about, how it related to my life. And then I also asked to be the last in the series. Two reasons for that. Number one is I had no idea what unexpected things could happen once I started working. You know, there's always the things you can plan for, and there's always the things you don't know. Like, oh my gosh, what's going to come and what's going to take up time that I don't. So I promise it wasn't procrastination. It was really, let me have more time to be ready. But the more important reason, any of you who've been a part of really any concert or festival experience, you know the headliner goes on last. So people actually clapped for that, so great. All right, so in Paul's letter to the Ephesians, we've been talking about the armor of God passage. And specifically, today, we're talking about Ephesians 6:16. And Paul says this, in addition to all this, take up the shield of faith, with which you can extinguish all the flaming arrows of the evil one. Isn't that amazing? All we have to do is believe in God, and the devil will leave you alone forever and ever. All right, good. See you next Sunday. We wish it were that simple, don't we? We wish it were that cut and dry and fit into that specific of a cookie cutter. But by the laughs, we know, not so fast, Jeff. It doesn't actually work that way. When I look at this particular verse on the shield of faith, there are three things that stick out to me. And those are the things I'd like to share with you today. The first thing is that obviously we have an enemy. We have an enemy, and we need to realize and remember that. One thing that's been so great in hearing all of the other four staff sermons before is that everyone has called out on that. Everyone acknowledges that. And it is great to be a part of a devil stomping staff to call that out. It's been pretty amazing. Paul references our enemy earlier in the passage, beginning in Ephesians chapter 6, verse 10. He says, finally, be strong in the Lord and in his mighty power. Put on the full armor of God so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. There is an enemy. And the second thing that the verse teaches me is that the enemy will attack us. Notice that Paul does not say, if the day of evil comes. He says, when the day of evil comes. And we know those attacks aren't going to be pleasant because not only are there arrows, they're flaming arrows. They're as terrible as they can possibly be. In Ephesians 6:13, which I just mentioned, Paul says, put on the full armor of God so that when the day of evil comes, you may be able to stand your ground. And after you have done everything, to stand. Look at the way this passage in Micah says the same thing in the Old Testament. It says, do not gloat over me, my enemy. Though I have fallen, I will rise. Though I sit in darkness, the Lord will be my light. I read someone say, when preparing for this message, that this armor of God passage, the key to this is the idea of to stay standing. That the enemy will attack you, but our mission Our goal is to keep standing strong. Now, something to know about me. I am bilingual. I am fluent in both English and film quotes. It is legit. So whenever I hear someone talk about a topic or I'll read something, I tend to not think about something I read, I think about something I've seen because I watch a lot of movies. And when we were first talking about this armor of God and we were kind of talking about how to really emphasize the idea of standing strong, I immediately thought of this video clip. You don't understand. We've referenced Star Wars twice in one Sunday. It is a good day. It is a great day. The idea that no matter what you're throwing at me, I can just brush it off after you have done everything to stand. So the passage, the Shield of Faith passage, tells us that we have an enemy, that the enemy will attack us. But the third thing it tells me is that our faith in God will help us endure. Now, sometimes we just throw around the word faith, and it's tough to know exactly what that means. There's the really famous, well-known passage in the book of Hebrews that says faith is the assurance of things that we hope for and the evidence of things that we can't see. For me, and how it applies to my life, faith to me means I know that God has never abandoned me and will never abandon me. If you've ever paid attention, those who've been in the men's room, there is a sign in the men's room out here in the lobby that says, faith is not believing that God can, it is knowing that God will. I thought about bringing that sign in here, but the last time I tried to adjust it because it was crooked, I knocked it off the wall. And so I said, I did that once. I'm not going to do that again. But faith is knowing that you are not abandoned. All right. So if that faith is what's going to help us endure the attacks of the enemy, how do we build that faith? If that's the goal, how do we get to there? Well, the first thing, I'm going to share with you two things that I've learned in the last year and a half of being back involved in a church. The first thing I'm going to share is not very popular. It is not necessarily something that you would see on a normal church's Facebook page or something you would see in a brochure. Probably not something we're going to shout from the Labor Day parade float. But we build our faith by recognizing God is at work during our terrible times. Now, the really unfortunate part of that is that we have to have those terrible times in order to go through that. As much as we live in an Amazon Prime next day society, none of us improves at what we want to improve overnight. If any of you have found the real secret of building muscle mass in your basement without needing to do it every night, let me know. I can just skip those steps, right? If anyone can talk about how to increase my playing speed on the guitar without spending 8 hours a day doing it for 20 years, please let me know. But we know that's not the way it works. We have to go through our terrible experiences before we can see God at work in them. What I think might be the most often used out of context passage in the New Testament is Philippians 4:13. And many of you probably know it just by me saying that passage. But I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. Well, I'm sorry to tell you, it doesn't refer to winning the championship game. It doesn't refer to passing the big test. It doesn't refer to getting the promotion. In fact, if we add verse 12 to it, and we read verse 12 into verse 13, we actually read this. I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. I can do all this through him who gives me strength. Amen. I have been through the ringer, and I know that God has not abandoned me. Or if we want to paraphrase it into fitting into our armor of God passage, I have been attacked by the enemy, and God has not abandoned me, so I can continue to stand. There's a song that's part of our regular rotation called Waymaker. And the lyrics toward the end of the song say, even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop. You never stop working. We build our faith when we realize that God has not abandoned us. You've probably seen or read or heard the well-known poem called Footprints. Story about a person, you know it, I'm not going to share it with you. And sometimes we're like, oh, that's kind of cutesy. But my gosh, it is real. And those of you who've been through it, you know it's real. I believe the second way that we build faith is that we actually build others' faith by sharing our stories and our lives. Earlier in Paul's letter to the Ephesians, before the armor of God passage, he starts giving instructions to how to live as Christian households. Fathers, sons, mothers, daughters. And then even before that, he starts giving instructions on how to live as a multicultural church. Every Sunday, we usually read out loud, we say out loud the church's mission statement. Well, so many of Paul's teachings earlier in the book of Ephesians, we could swap out for our mission statement, and it would pretty much be the same thing. For example, we could say, the Point Church exists to build others up according to their needs. Chapter 4, verse 29. Or we could say, the Point Church exists to help each other grow to become in every respect the mature body of him who is the head, that is Christ, in verse 15. Or finally, we could say, the Point Church exists to make the most of every opportunity because the days are evil. Anyone notice a common thread among the staff series, especially in the last two, among Gabby and Sarah? They were sharing how the enemy attacks them through their thoughts. You know, sometimes we think of the enemy's attacks as the giant things. We think about cancer, or an asteroid coming down, or leprosy, or an elephant trampled our house, or something massive. But the enemy is sneaky. The enemy knows us. He knows that we are strong when we are together, but he knows those moments when we are by ourselves, those moments when we are trying to get to sleep, but we're still angry about something that happened during the day, or we wake up several hours early because we're filled with anxiety about something that's going to happen. I don't know about you, but I was extremely encouraged, specifically hearing Gabby and Sarah the last 2 weeks. And in fact, in Sarah's message last week, she was talking about, I was like, that's what I was going to say. But that's all right, because I'm going to say it anyway. So, we build each other up by sharing our stories and our lives. So they did it during their sermon, so I'm going to do it too. All right, so we're going to play a game. I used to play this game a lot at CLC in various type of get-to-know-you situations, parties and stuff. It's a game called Two Truths and a Lie. So I'm going to put up three things on the screen. Two of them are true, one of them is a lie, and you get to figure out which one is the lie. Are you ready? All right, here we go. Number one, I was once hospitalized for anxiety. Number two, I have been on antidepressant medication for the last 3.5 years. Number three, I've got it all figured out by now. All right, that was an easy one. I was going to put up one about movies and stuff, but no, I decided to do this one. Yeah, dealing with anxiety, dealing with depression is something I've had a long time. I started counseling for depression in November of 2019. It is within 2 weeks. I went to my first session within 2 weeks of our first visit here at the Point, and there is not a person in this room who can convince me that was a coincidence. I started on medication in January of 2020, so it had nothing to do with COVID. I was a mess before then. COVID was a breeze. COVID was amazing. And then my therapist emails, hey, we're gonna start virtual sessions. I'm like, no, I'm not. The point is to be able to say things in a room where no one else can hear me. No, I'm not going to do that anymore. I joke about that because God has been faithful to me, and God has brought me from it. I want to tell you that, like Sarah said last week, the enemy used that information against me. He would say, you know, Jeff, if you were really a believer, you wouldn't need these. If you were really a Christian, you wouldn't need this. So you might not be. And I believed that for a while. Unfortunately, I did. Until I realized that this is just a tool for my healing. This is like vitamins or my allergy medication or a visit to the chiropractor. This is a tool for my blessing. So if the enemy ever tries to get onto you for this, you just tell the enemy to shut the front door. So, other than standing up in front of a captive audience for 30 minutes, how can we share our lives and share our stories? Because I seriously believe sharing our lives with each other is such a crucial way of encouraging and growing our faith. Well, the first thing I would say, and what I've been able to do in the last year and a half, is really share your life with others in a small group. Small group, life group, men's group, women's group, whatever you want to call it. Get to know a small group of people. This can be great for multiple reasons. A couple of months ago, we had someone in our Wednesday night group was talking about, he was dealing with depression. And it was the first time I had heard him dealing with it or saying anything about it out loud. And it was my opportunity to say, let me tell you a few things about depression. Let me tell you a few things. And I was able to share my story. And so sometimes you get those, oh my gosh, I didn't know this person. And then I was talking and someone else like, oh yeah, me too. Oh yeah, me too. Oh yeah, me too. And then you look at the person who hasn't said anything, he's like, what? I'm fine. But we get to share our stories and we get to know that we are not alone with what we're going through. Now, let me tell you a ridiculous story. This is like my most embarrassing keeping something in story. You know what floaters are in your eyes? Okay. Hang on. When I was 13 years old, I saw my first floater in my eye. And I had no idea what it was. And it freaked me out. I thought I was dying. So this was circa 1989. I didn't have WebMD to go look at. I just thought, oh, I'm going blind. I'm going to die. I was so scared of it, I didn't say anything to anyone. I didn't say anything to my parents. I didn't say anything. It wasn't until I went to grad school at Alabama. So I was somewhere between 22 and 25. So somewhere between 9 and 12 years later, that I heard someone casually mention it in conversation at lunch. They're like, oh man, my floaters are really crazy today. I was like, you mean that's a normal thing? I kept that in, that fear that I was dying, I was going blind, I was terrified of it, I was so scared I didn't want to talk to anyone about it. I kept that in for a decade. All right, here's your chance. On the count of 3, everyone say, that's ridiculous. 1, 2, 3. That's ridiculous. Yes, it was. All that to say is, you are not alone in what you're going through. And getting together with a group of other believers in a small group is a fantastic way to realize it. Now, being together in a small group isn't just heavy sharing big stories. We have a messenger group for our men's group, and I haven't really done this yet, but I'm getting ready to start. So those of you who are part of core, just get ready. You see, my wife, my son, and I, we share memes with each other throughout the day. Just, funny pictures. And Elliot will send 6 or 7 in a row, and I'll think, aren't you supposed to be in class right now? So we send pictures, and it's really fun. And I have been saving some to share with but I was like, I don't know. You get that, I don't know. Is anyone else going to think this is funny? I think it. So anyway, part of my new fall resolution is when they come, I'm going to share them. So guys, get ready. So anyway, this is the first one that I thought I would share. Suddenly, Father Schober was not sure whether he really should have bought the new crucifix at IKEA. So the idea of encouraging each other through laughter, man, you have no idea what someone's going through. I could be like, oh, this is dumb. You know what? And there might be 20 guys who think, why is he sending this? But there might be the one person who's having a really terrible day and could use a laugh at something stupid. So for the 20 who don't need it, my apologies. I'm getting ready to start. The second way that I believe we can share our lives with each other is that we can share our lives with each other by serving. There have been several ways in which I've had the amazing opportunity to be a part of serving. The first thing I did was starting to play guitar with the band back March of 2022, I believe. Being able to play guitar again was amazing. Being able to help people worship, being able to help people in the rehearsal process was really great. Being able to help at the food pantry a couple of times on my random Mondays off, that is a wonderful experience. If you get the chance to help in the food pantry. I know a lot of people work, I know schedules, it doesn't work for a lot of people, but it is a wonderful experience, and I hope that I kind of get to a point where my Mondays kind of settle into a good routine and I can go back to helping on Mondays. I highly encourage that. Being able to help the couple of the last 2 rebuilding togethers has been really good. I mean, getting to know people while you're getting dirty and sweaty and while you're helping people out is really fantastic. Being able to get to know each other. Now, I have this amazing opportunity to get to know the people, both the musicians here on the stage or the magicians backstage, the people who take part. Do you know something that so many people in the band, in the tech team, that they share with me that's common? So many of them don't feel worthy to be doing it. They don't feel worthy spiritually. They don't feel like they have the talent enough to do it. Isn't that ridiculous? That's ridiculous. Because it's the enemy saying, you know what, you don't really belong up there. So, if you think, man, I would love to be a part of of making the magic happen, of making the music happen, but you don't think you're good enough, guess what? You're in good company. And if you are looking for a place to belong, a place to serve, you are welcome to come join us. We tend to practice Thursday nights, 6:30 to 8-ish. If you want to come and hear us make mistakes for an hour and a half, but then come see if this is how you want to be a part of serving, we would love to have you. The door is unlocked. You're welcome. We would love to have you come check it out. If you think, but Jeff, I've never done that before, guess what? No one is born with a guitar in their hand. No one comes out of the womb holding a microphone. No one takes their pacifier out and says, you need to tweak the high mid and the EQ. We all do it for the first time. So if it's something you're looking for a way to be a part, we will come hang out with us. We will do our best to get you involved. To end, there are two things I want to make sure you leave here today. Not just the sermon, but all of being a part here today. Number one, God adores you. Not just enough to die for you, not just enough to send Jesus, God wants to spend time with you. He wants you to hang out with him. He wants you to say, man, God, remember that time I was ridiculous not talking to someone about my eyes for 10 years? He wants you to share your life with him. He wants you to know him through his word. He wants you to know him through his church. And finally, you are not alone. I can't speak about a lot of things. There are a lot of tragedies in life I can't talk about, but there are a lot that I can. You are not alone. If you want to come talk to me or anyone, just, oh man, I'm having a rough time. That's all you got to say. Or if you want to say, hey, how did you get through this? Or if you've been through the fire and you made it out, share your story with others because we need to hear it. I need to hear your stories, and I hope hearing mine is good for you. The absolute last thing is I'd like to read a letter that was written to you. And this says, I pray that out of his glorious riches, he may strengthen you with power through his Spirit in your inner being, so that Christ may dwell in your hearts through faith. And I pray that you, being rooted and established in love, may have the power, together with all the Lord's holy people, to grasp how wide and long and high and deep is the love of Christ, and to know this love that surpasses knowledge, so that you may be filled with the measure of all of the fullness of God. Signed, the Apostle Paul. Thank you, church.